the last time I came down to Cornwall for the Lure Festival, I ended up doing about 750 miles inside 3 days. There's one very good reason for that, because the competition grounds for the Lure Festival is Cornwall, all of it, which means you've got an awful lot of ground to cover. And actually this year it's not going to get any easier, because this year I'm actually taking part. So this weekend what we're after is anything you can catch on a lure, and that means bass fishing, it means wrasse fishing, but it also means what these guys behind me are involved in for 3 extraordinary days. I'm involved in the species hunt, so that basically means trying to catch anything that swims. We have 72 hours of fishing ahead of us, covering an area that's actually the whole of Cornwall. I mean, honestly, it's one of the most difficult competitions you could possibly imagine. Local knowledge is everything. People are going to try their hearts out to catch all these weird and wonderful little micro species. So let's have a chat with a few of the guys and see what makes them tick.
It's brilliant, bringing people together from all over the country, not just the southwest. I'm based down here in Cornwall, so I usually fish with the guys down in this end or up in Plymouth, but this competition in particular, getting people together from all over, different experiences as well, that's fantastic.
I think it's just the joy it brings and the adrenaline, especially reeling up a fish and then you don't know what it is. It's like winning the lottery every single cast. It's brilliant.
Well, I think the best part of it is just kind of the community aspect of it. Kind of everyone comes together with kind of the same mindset, the same kind of love for the sport, respect to the environment, and just everyone's getting together, sharing tips. There's kind of a real, I'm sure it's been said before, there's a real kind of community and kind of friendship about it.
There's a lot of forms of fishing where you hide every mark that you have. Like with this, you'll sit here, someone will say, oh, I need a painted goby, and 10 people will tell you exactly where to go, what to catch it on, and where they caught their last one.
Or they'll give up half an hour to help you find one if you can't see them like I can. So.
Nah, it's not a selfish sport, is it?
You know, whenever you get a group of competition anglers together, there's always an incredible buzz, and this morning is no exception. Actually though, this isn't even the first day of the competition. That took place yesterday at a very, very special location over the other side of Cornwall. Well, I must admit I'm a little bit out of breath. We've been uphill and down dale, and the reason we've done that is to get to one of Josh Fletcher's favourite wrasse marks. Look at this place. It doesn't get much more Cornish than this for me. Lovely little cove. Just over the other side we've got Mevergissey. In the distance, just the most gorgeous views you've ever seen anywhere. And of course wrasse form the 3rd area of the Cornish Lure Festival. So we're going to have a little go. We've got Josh, Ben and I fishing off the rocks here, so let's see if we can catch a fish or two. So Ben, we've got about 150 or so anglers this weekend. One of the things I love about this competition is the diversity of it. You know, we've seen the kind of the LRF style stuff, and here we are, me, you and Josh, fishing and at the moment failing to catch wrasse. But isn't it fascinating the different types of fishing that you've got available to you here in Cornwall?
I mean, it's so varied. It's actually the original reason why we split the competition into so many categories as it was anyway. Catching numbers of species has almost become what it's all about. The ultimate challenge perhaps is to find something that nobody else has perhaps recorded, at least, that they've caught on a lure.
Well, the wrasse fishing doesn't actually seem to be happening, and Ben's already talked to us a little bit about the diversity of the competition. So have a little look at this. Here's Mr. Fletcher making up for the lack of wrasse with one of the most extraordinary creatures you are likely to see fishing a lure anywhere. This is a garfish. Caught off the top, great piece of angling. Josh spotted a little shoal of these fish, working away just off the harbour wall. We've had a bit of a move round. chucked his top water across them, and within a few casts had this incredible looking creature. And do you know something else? They've got green scales and actually green bones. Weird. When the sun goes down, these things start to get very, very interesting indeed. We're in Mevagissey Harbour, a classic, beautiful Cornish harbour. Look around us, it's absolutely stunning. And the water is full of really interesting mini species that only start to feed when the lights go down. This is going to be a fascinating little part of the event, a kind of a sub-competition, if you like, to see where these guys can catch a few fish. So, as you can see, LRF anglers, as far as the eye can see, all lined up here on the seawall at Mevagissey, light fading, load of mates together. What a brilliant thing. Now, some of them have already been fishing for most of the day, in fact, and man just over to my left, who happens to be quite a good mate of mine, Dan Sissons, is one of those who's leading. Dan has had 8 species today.
Well, we got lucky. I had a very slow start and then managed to pull myself together at the end. Like anything can turn up, you know. I was fortunate enough to catch a leopard spotted goby earlier on, which I just wouldn't get back home. It's those little nuggets.
Yeah.
It's those little things that bring us back. You know, might get a rock hook this weekend.
Oh.
It's a great time of year for species, especially in Cornwall.
It's 100 points of fish, by the way. So I'm on 100. What have you got from this evening?
Less than 100.
Less than 100. I definitely need to get you to concentrate then.
We'll keep trying.
My mission is to not finish last. Because I've got absolutely no clue what I'm doing. You've got a lot of clue what you're doing, so I need to let you get on.
Thank you, mate.
What on earth are we doing standing on a pier in the pitch dark, loads of us like excited schoolboys trying to catch fish that are 3 inches long?
Yeah.
What is going on here?
Well, we've been doing it for years. I mean, probably over 10 years now we've been species hunting. First couple of years that we were doing it, we were getting like 8 and 10 species like within the first 2 days, and like now we're getting that in the first few hours, like where we've learned.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Last year I think I managed 23.
So what is that a target for this year then, to go one better?
20 is always the target, really.
Right. Well, this isn't easy. Apart from the fact you're teetering on the edge of a sea wall in the pitch darkness, trying to figure out your presentation with the lightest possible jig head in reasonably swirly kind of tidal water in the dark, so you're feeling everything rather than seeing what's going on. You can't watch your rod tip because you can't see it. It really is a surreal experience, but tremendous fun. And one of the things that I've noticed straight away is all your senses are heightened so much, it's extraordinary. Well, just at a bite then. Oh, you feel little dings on your rod tip every now and again. Look, what you'll notice with all this sort of stuff, it's kind of a bit weird. Stuff from all over the place. Bits with Japanese writing on, these glow in the dark. They glow in the dark. Oh, I might try one of those. Or I might try one of those that look like they're real wriggly worm things mounted on a little tiny jig head. I've got one fish, I've got 100 points. There are some who haven't caught a fish, so I'm not last, which is my aim in the whole thing, is to not finish last. I need to calm down, focus, get my competition fishing head on, and think what I'm going to do. Do I want one that glows in the dark, or do I want a wriggly one? I just don't know. I've decided to go with the glow in the darky thing, which doesn't actually look like anything earthly. As a call goes out for Josh to measure another fish. Little tiny jig head. Hopefully one of those little tiny pollock or something similar will snaffle that as it goes down the side of the seawall. The braid I'm using is 3 or 4 pound breaking strain. I've got 2 pound line on the bottom and the tiniest tungsten jig head and a little tiny glow in the dark thing on the end. And you do feel everything. It's really great fun. There's another bite. Got a fish. Yes. 200 points, that is. 2 fish, 200. Is that Josh? I need fish for Andy Ford, Josh. I wonder if I've sussed something. You see the little glow in the dark thing? Oh. I think all hope is lost. Time is running out. We've been fishing for 2 hours. 2 minutes left. I've just lost my jig head and it's too dark to see to thread the tiny diameter braid through the rod rings on my lure rod. So I'm going to have to settle for 2 fish and 200 points, which apparently isn't last. So job done. I'm very happy. Tomorrow morning I'm going to go and do something else and see what other excitement and fantastic adventure the Cornish Lure Festival will bring. So the routine today is that there are actually 4 sections, 4 A, B, C and D, and I've been drawn in section D. If I tell you, Dan Sissons, who's leading the event at the moment, and Will Pender, the former champion, are both in my section, you can kind of see the size of the task facing me over the next few hours. Now we actually rotate around Falmouth, so this is the first part of our fishing adventure today. There are 3 other similar piers all the way down towards the end of the harbour, and actually the last section of the day is on the Prince of Wales Pier, which is right down the other end, where all of the 4 sections fish together and we try and catch fish just into the kind of brink of darkness. So I best get on with it and see if I can catch something. Now, before I do that, I have actually had a little bit of help this morning from the man over my right shoulder, and they're really a few anglers better at this than Will Pender. So let's talk a little bit about this man, Will Pender. He is something of an exception. I've never seen an angler work as hard, and one of the things that you'll notice about the guys rushing around all over the place in the Lure Festival this weekend is there's very little sleeping. So I think last year Will had 6 or 7 hours sleep, covers basically the whole county, drives absolutely everywhere, sleeps in his car sometimes, just to get to a certain mark to get one particular species. I know it sounds mad, but honestly this is the level of dedication that these anglers have to their cause. We're heading down to just the other side of Falmouth today, down all the little country lanes to find Will. I have to tell you, it's reasonably early in the morning now. He's already been fishing for about the last 5 hours. Lord only knows what he's been catching, but he's heading to this particular mark to catch one very special species. The mark you've brought us to today, we're a stone's throw from Falmouth. Actually, where we're fishing is over there later on, which is really interesting. So why have you brought us here? Because there was talk last night of a species I've never even seen.
So basically, we're here on the off chance of getting a Coochers. A Coochers bream, awesome little thing. They're a fairly new resident. They've come up from the Med and they get a nice big kind of 6-7 pounders out of Penzance, but in the estuaries here a big fish is like £1, but they've kind of muscled in big numbers, gilts, and then we've had blacks and the Coochers, and they're just really pretty fish. They're pinks with iridescent purples and they put up a good scrap. Not to say we're going to catch one, but we'll try. We'll try.
It certainly doesn't feel very Mediterranean today, that's
we'll
for sure.
try.
So how's your species hunt going so far?
Slower than I'd like. This is a slow start to the year. I had car breakdowns.
I heard about the car breakdown yesterday. So, yes, nightmare.
Yeah, it's. I've told the story many times, but no, it was. My hunt started off pretty bad. I was like, nerves were shot. I'd missed the sign in, anxiety through the roof. Like, it took me a while just to settle in and get into the flow. I was just kind of twitching really.
But you see, I like this because you've done so well in this competition. I've lost count of the number of times you've kind of won it, certainly top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Putting you under a bit of pressure, and kind of making you almost come, you've kind of given everybody else a bit of a head start. I quite like it.
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't mind winning or losing. I just love fishing the CLF. But I will give it my all. This is the one I will, and I'll say hello. But if I don't say hello, it's because I'm fishing, and just catch me in the pub later, and we'll have a chat, and I'll be there for hours.
What is it you love about I know how much you love the kind of the species hunting thing, but this is such a special competition. Why do you love it so much?
It's Cornwall. I'm defending home turf. Really. It's how we used to see it years gone by. It was Cornwall versus the rest of England in the CLF, so we had to keep the trophy on home soil. And poignant for me, the CLF existed just before I got into LRF, so it was already there, and it was something that I aimed to do with confidence, to be able to feel confident in myself enough to enter. So once I got to that point, that was a big part of my journey and a big part of my learning how to almost match fish your time and learn your marks and your research and your venues. That all came from wanting to do better and better at the CLF.
Now, we need to do some fishing, because us standing here talking isn't getting a coochies or anything else caught.
No, that's true.
So let's get on with it. Just show us behind the kind of curtain, the secret rigs of Will Pender.
It's a bit of a messed up version of a snooded drop shot. So overweighted, it's 10 grams, and then I've got an inch and a half, 2 inches of line tied directly to my leader, and off which is a size 14 hook and a 2-inch section of ISO. And that's it. I'm just trying to present that above the water. If they're feeding higher, I can slide it up.
That's the bit I like. That's
if
very
they're
clever.
Lower, I can feed it lower without having to keep changing my weight, really. To keep adjusting and pinching the line and retying leaders, I can do that. And if I want to swap the hook size, I just snip that, retie a snood without having to take the whole lot off.
It's about speed, isn't it? And it's about more fishing time.
The time is species, time is fish. So the more time I'm in the water, the more likely you are to catch fish.
Down here. I'm dingle dangling, Will.
Get on, you've been told to dingle dangle.
This is a method you've not showed me.
By the Flushing Mafia.
I think we might have been indoctrinated into the Flushing Sailing Club Saturday morning fishing. I've just been told to go here and dingle dangle, which is a method that Will's not told me about. Don't know whether it'll work or not, but you know, a dingle dangle's got to be worth a go. We haven't caught anything else, that's for sure. Don't know which bit's the dingle and which bit's the dangle though. Maybe that's a drawback. Well, it's all going off here. Look at this. So Will is measuring a Ballon wrasse, which is one of the species he didn't have. So that takes you to where, Will?
13.
That takes him to 13, and there we can see what we came for, which is a Cooch's bream. Mediterranean fish on a day which flipping well isn't Mediterranean, that's for certain. We've made it to 9:30, Will. We haven't seen a Cooch's bream on the end of our line, but it's lovely to see the bait anglers catch
That's it, they are there. We were just fighting a big tide and strong winds, so the presentation was tricky, but you've seen one and they're stunning fish.
They are, and you've had a Ballon wrasse.
I had a Ballon and a couple of corkies. So.
Species number 13. I'm going to stick it out here for a minute.
Go for it.
And I'm going to see you over in Falmouth
I'll see you
in an hour.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes.
Very best of luck.
Cheers, Andy.
Well, it's happened at last. Little change of bait, funnily enough, different colour, and a little wrasse. Oh, that's a cork wing. So this is the process all the guys are going through. Clearly see the card and the fish. Photo taken. There we go. I'm off the mark. You know, this sort of thing never stops. So we'll leave Flushing behind. Had a great morning, really interesting. Great to see a couple of Cooch's bream, and in fact, there were 2 caught by the bait anglers. I had one wrasse, lost another one, so I'm well on the scoreboard. I'm pretty happy with the way things went. This though is where things start to get very, very interesting, because we're heading over to Falmouth to join the rest of the crew who are involved in the species hunt, where we all fish together and try and catch as many of those different micro species as we can. So this is section D and our first session of the day. And those hints that Will gave me earlier on this morning, I hope will help. I did actually manage, as you probably saw, to catch one fish after he left and lost another one. I think actually quite a big one, which is quite disappointing. But you know, it's a learning process. The situation we have at the moment, in contrast to what we saw over the other side of the harbour first thing, was that the tide is now ebbing away. In fact, it's nearly out. You can see how little water we have in front of us, and all of the anglers here are just kind of spotting the little rocks below us and trying to drop our little soamy worm patterns, the ones that we showed you earlier on, into the gaps between the rocks to try and catch a fish. A couple of fish have already been caught, little tiny wrasse, a couple of gobies as well. So there are some fish here. Big question is, can I catch one?
It's a
Not a cuckoo, cork ring, that's right.
And you're right. Bang on. 150 mil.
Hee. Same as the one I caught this morning. Slightly bigger actually. Back it goes. Try again. That is a different species of wrasse. That is a ballan. Little one, but still a ballan. Scores on the door, sir?
169 mil.
169 mil. Beautiful. Just to illustrate that Will Pender is in fact just a little bit different to the rest of us. Just different gravy. I've been fishing this little spot here for about 10 minutes. He's just dropped in next to me. 2 casts. Tom Pop Lenny. Just different gravy. So that's our first rotation done, and it looks like the man himself has done it yet again. 7 fish, 4 different species. Dan Sissons has only had 2. I've had 2 species, so very pleased with my efforts. Without Will's help, I don't think I'd have got near it. We're now off to our second rotation, which is B, this is D, so we've got to walk through town and see if we can find what's happening on that mark. Joe's caught a fish already. Here we are on our second rotation, and Mr. Mole is in. What you got, Joe? Goby. Rock goby. Isn't it amazing that even in conditions where there's so little water, these little rockfish will take a lure? It's just the most incredible thing. And I've learned so much already today. Watching Will fish has been a real education. You know, finding little gaps in rocks where you didn't even know there were gaps. Oh, there are fish. Another fish.
There are fish at last.
What you got?
Rock goby.
Rock goby?
Yep.
There are gobies. Look, that side. It's all getting a little bit cosy as the tide starts to come in. You can see people backing up the steps. But there are fish here. I've just had my first goby. In fact, next to Mr. Sissons, who also had a goby. really enjoyed that. That's the halfway point in today's fishing. I've had 7 fish. I've really kind of, I think, found a little bit of a rhythm, which is really interesting. Learn so much as you go. It's fascinating fishing next to these guys because they are on a different level. And if I tell you, while I've had 7 fish and been really pleased, Will Pender's had 12, but Dan Sissons, who was leading the overall thing coming into today's event, has had 13 fish. They're just brilliant anglers, and they've just got kind of the presentation down to a really fine art. I am learning lots of stuff, which is just such good fun. 2 sections left, so we fish down the other end of the harbour first, and then as we go into evening, all of us are going to be over on that white pier to my right hand side. Well, this is the last session of our rotation before everybody gets together on the big pier over on the end. Hour and a half ahead of us. At last, we've got some water to fish. So what I've decided to do is try and catch a big fish. So I've stuck on a metal jig, and I'm aiming to catch either a bass, a mackerel, or a garfish. We've already had a fish caught next to us. Al has caught one, which is fantastic. Another species, common blenny. Amazing. It's got eyelashes. Exciting times, another species. Tompot blenny. I think I'm up to 7 now. Look at him, isn't he amazing? Wriggly little fella. This is great fun. Rock goby, new species. I think that is species number 8. Oh, look at this. Look at this! Now we saw them this morning. Steve Rowland with a Coochie's bream. The thing I'm really starting to love about this is the celebration of stuff that doesn't get celebrated. You know, here we are, a load of, I'm going to use the word grown-ups, but you know what I mean. Just captivated by catching a load of tiny fish. This is just like being a kid. Look at the stupid smile on my face. I've caught 8 species of micro stuff, and I'm happy as Larry and surrounded by a load of people that probably weren't my mates to start with but are now. It's just fantastic. I do love it. It's so good. I need to catch another fish. I want to catch one of those that Steve just caught. That's a Coochie's bream. Fantastic. From a fairly steady-ish start, this mark is delivering some extraordinary stuff. We've already seen a Coochie's bream, and Joe Mole has just caught what has got to be my absolute favourite rockfish, a scorpion fish. Just have a look at this fella. What an absolute treat to see a creature like that. Blue mouth, looks like it would rip your face off. Totally harmless actually, unlike its kind of Mediterranean cousin, which is poisonous. But the scorpion fish we get in the UK are not poisonous at all. But isn't that the most fantastic predator you've ever seen? So 5 fish in that session, that's the group section over with. Now we're all going to go and fish together on the big pier. Now that's going to be really interesting because there's a bit of Cornish mizzle coming in, I've got to say. Light level's dropping a little bit, so some interesting stuff might turn up. The tide's nice and high, there's lots of water around, and there are a few signs of things like garfish. So let's get down there and see what the pier has to offer. Ooh. Ooh. Scat. It's exciting, Mr. Sissons. Well done. Amazing. That's quite a decent fish, isn't it? Well, Dan Sissons, who is right up there towards the top of this competition, has just caught a really nice looking scad, horse mackerel. So that's a fish that tends to feed as the light levels drop. You can tell that by the size of their eyes. Really nice fish that, and very interesting to see. That's the second scad we've seen caught on this. There have been a mackerel caught here as well, and a garfish. Well, it's been an interesting evening. To be honest, not my most productive of the day. Actually, I haven't caught anything. My first session where I've blanked. I did try and stick it out to try and catch a scad, having watched a couple of the other guys manage to encounter them, and I didn't manage it. I'm not actually that worried, and to be honest, it's been an amazing, amazing day. It's been such great fun. I hope you can kind of gauge the enthusiasm that all of us have got for this sort of sport. Now, there's one area that I haven't touched all weekend, and actually I've been desperate to do it for days and days, and that is to try to catch a Cornish bass. So tomorrow morning, Josh Fletcher and I are going to go out and do exactly that. Well then, good morning all. The last morning of the Cornish Lure Festival, and this fine fellow, Mr. Fletcher, has brought me to one of his favourite spots. Why are we here, sir?
Basically, the features here just tease up very well for the bass. There's plenty of structure, there's submerged rocks and bladderwrack. With the tide about to turn and go out, it's just perfect. Well, hopefully it's perfect.
Well, listen Josh, we've been bass fishing before. It's not always as as advertised. So, you know, well, there's things moving, There's a lot of water.
Yeah.
Lots of water.
More than probably I'd hoped for. But
yes.
Which can have an effect sometimes, but we'll see. Well, yeah, we'll see.
Well, look, the reality here is this. We tried for the wrasse, we didn't get one, but we had a brilliant day on the Friday.
Yeah.
Honestly, yesterday I had an absolute blast. The species hunt was phenomenal. If we top it off with a bass, just saw a fish. If we top it off with a bass, I'm going to be beyond happy. If we don't, we get to fish a fantastic location like this.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Let's just have a go. You know what bass are like. I mean, you've been doing this for years. So,
Yeah.
you know, we'll either catch one or we won't. We'll give it a very, very good go.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we'll have to go back and see who's won all the prizes. So, lead on, sir.
Let's get onto it.
Yeah.
Let's.
I'll tell you what, there is very little more exciting in fishing than trying to catch bass. And I think that's because you're never guaranteed. Sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't. If it does, oh my lord. If it doesn't, yeah. And you know, we go early. We're fishing top waters, by the way, so surface baits, which I sense Mr. Fletcher is a bit of a master at, actually. So
the one I enjoy the most.
Well, it's just brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, very visual.
So state of tide is interesting with the bass fishing.
Yeah.
And I mean, down near me, we tend to find that it fishes well on the ebb. So when the tide starts to flood out, you know, it fills up this area. I'm assuming this is, you know, when the tide's out here, you can kind of walk miles out.
Yeah.
Or you can see miles out.
On a big tide like we've got, the lows are extremely low, so you can get pretty much into the main flow channel, which is rare really. But as you say, on the big tides, they comes right up. And again, the best state I find on the estuaries locally, and well, all around Cornwall, seems to be the ebb tide, like an hour or two after high.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, why they go on the feed like that.
I think it's just easy for them, especially the bigger fish. They just don't have to move a lot because they know the food's coming to them in some respects.
Mate, and the other thing I've often wondered is there's like a food panic. You know, they can see all the bait fish going out past them, going back out or kind of moving. It's everything's thrown into a bit of kind of disarray, isn't it?
That's it.
So you were saying about features here. So if we look out at the yellow danger buoy there, what have we got underneath us? I mean, you know, there's so much water here at the moment. So what's actually...
So below us here is mainly just kelp racks, like just bits of kelp on the rocks, which then shelves off into like clean mud, which is just horrible to walk in.
Yeah.
But then if you say like go down left and look down to between the buoys, there's like just submerged racks, oyster racks. And the fish tend to just sit either in amongst them, near them, on them. Depends on the state of the tides. If it's bigger tides like this, they'll probably be more in amongst them. But as the tide drops off, they sort of use them as ambush points, like ambush lanes almost.
Oh, so pleased. Well done, Josh. I mean, it's not a monster, is it? But brilliant. Aren't they superb?
Yeah, awesome.
I'll tell you what, mind-blowing, in this clear water, to see that fish come up and smash your... Oh, that's so cool.
It's just as I was saying, there's bait there and I stopped it.
Yeah.
Probably, in all honesty, it wasn't intentional.
Well, I mean, he's only just over a pound, isn't he? Even that.
Almost like the same size as the greedy, though. Goes to show, doesn't it? They're just
aren't they
greedy.
such the coolest fish on the planet?
Yeah, awesome.
See, that's funny, isn't it? Because we have been talking. You know what it's like when you start fishing and doubts start to creep into your head.
Beautiful.
You start to think, oh, shall we try somewhere else? And something stopped him. Something stopped him and said, another cast. And where there's a little one like that,
there should be a few more, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe they're just starting to switch on. We've moved. Part of the reason we've moved is we had a little visitor, which is fantastic to see, but to be honest, for bass fishing, not a fantastic sign. They tend to freak the bass all over the place, and that's quite a big seal, isn't it, that? As soon as you saw that, you said, we need to think about moving.
Yeah, they just spook the fish. It's a big predator, really.
Well, for good reason.
Yeah.
They eat a lot of fish. Interesting to see one up this far.
Yeah, it's the first time for myself I've seen one up here. Big tide, I suppose, brings them up.
Yeah. But you were saying this is possibly your first choice spot anyway.
Yeah, this is 100%. The only reason we didn't come here earlier was because the tide was so big. There wouldn't have been much room at all. You'd be up there, basically.
One of the interesting things we saw looking down was a mussel boat working.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, coming around here, and so there are mussel beds out there.
Yeah.
Trawling around, scraping the mussels out of the, you know, you can see the shingle below us and the rocks and everything else. But you were saying that's the kind of thing that really sort of stirs everything up.
Yeah, so after one of those boats has been through, it's just so much stuff up from the sand, little crabs, crustaceans, sand eels, like everything bait a bass could want. So having that stirred up prior to fishing, I feel like it draws a lot of fish in. Almost like pre-baiting a swim, I suppose. Like
yeah.
It's a good chance to take advantage of that and have a go at some bass.
Right, well, let's get casting. I'm back on top waters, so are you. Josh is on a special rock, as you can see.
My favourite rock, this one.
Just wondering whether his wellies are long enough, and finding out that they just about are. But it was close, let me tell you. Oh, I've got a garfish.
I've got a fish rolling in my little...
Oh my lord. Well look, I'm still in the species hunt.
Yeah, nice. Perfect.
I don't quite know how to deal with this, but I've got a garfish. I'm covered in green scales. That might not be the biggest fish I've ever caught, but it's certainly one of the weirdest. And remember, I'm still in the species hunt, so it's not a bass. But it does mean I haven't blanked today, and I've added to my score in the Cornish Lure Festival. Wonderful stuff. Garfish. Well, at long last, after lots of changes, lots of different stuff, I've gone back to a top water, and I've managed to get a take. I don't think it's a very big bass, but it is a Cornish bass. Just had a feeling there was some fish out there. We've seen a load of mullet cruising around. Oh, there he is. Little fella, little schoolie. Just bring him in here on the lovely soft bladder rack.
Awesome.
Caught a bass. Not the enormous fish that we were hoping to catch, but to be honest, Cornish perfection. Oh, chuffed to bits with that. I know he's only a little fella. I don't
chuffed
care.
for you.
And the other thing, that's another fish to the species hunt, Mr. Fletcher.
It is.
This weekend's gone all right. Well, I'm afraid the time has come for him to go and do some proper work, because Josh has got to go back to Showground headquarters and set things up for the presentation. We're about to find out who's going to win the Cornish Lure Festival. It's been a brilliant morning. Thank you, mate.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me.
Tough,
Yeah,
but you know,
definitely.
just good fun really. But I've had 2 fish, garfish and a bass.
Yeah.
Can't complain about that. 2 more for the species hunt.
I see it all adds up, doesn't it? All adds up.
Go on, go back and do some work, help that nice Mr. Fielder.
Yeah,
I'll see you in a
that's
bit. I might have a couple more casts, I don't know.
Yeah, I dare you.
Yeah, I think I will. See you later,
See you
John.
later, thank you.
So after a few more casts, there was nothing for it. Time to pack the rods away and head back for the presentations. So it was underway, and a fish worthy of any beach in Cornwall won the bass discipline for Dave Gundry, a cracker measuring 68 centimetres. And when it came to the King of Species hunting for 2023,
Our winner of the species section is Mr. Will Pender. Well done. Nicely done. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
in total, around 30 different species of saltwater fish were caught on lures over the weekend. But here's what was needed to win the species hunt. Will Pender's 19 fish contained this incredible selection.
Species overall. There's a couple of fixed locations that we have to be at and fish in certain formats, and then outside of those hours we chase other bits, so 19 different types of fish. Sleep-wise, 5 hours.
Over the whole weekend?
Since Friday morning, yeah.
Well, back in the car again, and at last I'm heading home. Another 250 miles to go. It's been amazing. I just want to sort of pay tribute to the dedication of these anglers. I can't match them for the lack of sleep they've had this weekend. Will Pender slept for 5.5 hours from Friday until Sunday. I mean, honestly, just extraordinary. And the rest of them have done something similar. The amount of work, the amount of hours, the amount of miles they travel is what this festival is all about. So on the drive home, I shall start to reflect a little bit about maybe a few more fish I could have caught, the ones that got away, as always as an angler, and then start to think about what I do next time I come back to the amazing Cornish Lure Festival.